Good evening, everyone. Muy buenas noches a todas las personas que nos acompañan hoy. On behalf of the Newark Public Library, I welcome you to tonight's event, a discussion of the extraordinary feature film, Extraterrestres, with its director and producer, Carla Cavina, who is joining us tonight from Puerto Rico. My name is Ingrid Betancourt. I am Assistant Director for Special Collections at the library. The Newark Public Library has been creating and presenting public programs for our Latino communities and about Latino issues, history, and culture for over 40 years. It is truly a pleasure for me to introduce this evening's program, which is being presented in partnership with and is sponsored by a dynamic community organization, the Friends of the Hispanic Research and Information Center, or Friends of HRIC for short. Through their advocacy and financial support over the years, the Friends of HRIC have made possible the creation of the New Jersey Hispanic Research and Information Center at the Newark Public Library. This is a statewide center which provides a variety of programs and services to our Latino communities, and which offers unique historical resources that chronicle the presence, contributions, and long history of Latinos in the state of New Jersey. So now it's my pleasure to turn the program over to Ernesto Diaz Guerrero, who is the chair of the Friends of HRIC. Ernesto?
Thank you, Ingrid, and welcome everybody to our program tonight. We have the pleasure to have Ingrid introducing us. She's one of the people that support the Newark community through the library, and we thank you for helping us to organize this program, and thank the library for all what they do for the Latino community. And we have, of course, Grisel Camacho, who is one of the board members of Friends of HRIC, and Carla Cavina. Thank you for being with us tonight, and it will be great to have some answers to the questions related to your film, Extraterrestres. So Friends of HRIC is a 503c organization. The objective of the organization is to preserve the history of Latinos in the state of New Jersey. And we support, of course, the components of the library, such as La Sala Hispanoamericana, that is one of the biggest collections of Latino books in the state of New Jersey. So if Hispanics want to read Gabriel Garcia Marquez and other authors, they should go to the Newark Public Library that has that incredible collection. And we have been very happy to support them throughout the years. And of course, the Puerto Rican archives that are essential to preserve the history of one of the largest immigrant groups in New Jersey and in the United States. They are US citizens, but they are proud to be Latinos and participate in the traditions of our culture. And then we have the Hispanic reference collection that is incredible for historians, for people that have the special needs to find information about the history of Latinos in our community. So we need to support those programs, and we encourage everybody that is in this particular program to support Friends of HRIC and support our goals with the Newark Public Library. And with that, I want to introduce again Grisel. Grisel is a lawyer in the Newark community, and of course, she's an excellent member, one of the first members of the Friends of HRIC, and she had the idea that we must promote the Puerto Rican community and films like this, the Extraterrestres, that display the growth of the film industry in the Latino community. So that was a great idea. We totally support that. And again, I thank Ingrid also for supporting that idea. And Carla Cavina, of course, wonderful Puerto Rican. She has many roles, as you can see in the film. She is a filmmaker, the screenwriter, the producer, the director, and she had made many films, short films that are very important for the film industry in Puerto Rico. So with that, I want to thank her for being here. And we have questions that have been developed to find more answers related to this wonderful film. So with that, I introduce now Crisel Camacho that will continue with this program.
Thank you, Ernesto, and thank you, Ingrid. And buenas noches, and bienvenida, Carla, to the Newark Public Library, even if it's virtually.
Thank you.
I've been really looking forward to this, to hearing from you. I've seen the film a couple of times. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I'm really looking forward to some of the information you're going to share with us. So rather than introducing you, I'd like you to tell us about yourself. How did you get into filmmaking? What other things do you do?
Hi, thank you. Thank you both organizations for having me, for promoting my film, for making it available to the community, to the Hispanic community in New Jersey. It makes me very happy and very thankful and very proud. So first of all, thank you, and thank you for the people that saw the movie and is watching this live right now. I study art. I study photography in university. I didn't study film. I just was maybe I was very interested in different things on art, and I started studying theater. And from theater and photography, I started, by myself studying film, taking a lot of workshops, and just doing it and learning from my first mistakes, and then doing a lot of film community work. Like we travel around the island teaching communities to do film and to work together, and that was very beautiful. And I think that was the time, like, that project was called Proyecto de Comunicación, and it lasted 8 years, and I think during that years I became like a director. um, I always write, so that came with the package.
By the way, everybody, you can ask questions on the chat, or if you're on Facebook, you could ask questions through Facebook. Carla, the film is based entirely on your concept. You wrote the script, you directed it, as Ernesto said, and you were an executive producer. How did the idea of Extraterrestres come to be, and how did it develop?
Well, I did have all those hats, but I did have a lot of help too. Also, in building the story, I have the opportunity to work with what we call a table of writers. So that was very, very enriching to the idea that I have. I have this idea of making a film about the poultry industry since 2003, when Picu, that was a very successful industry in Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is a colony, so we don't have that much of compañías exitosas, like. So for me, it was like very shocking, either that that I'm vegetarian. So for me, it was like a shock to our culture when the United States poultry business and the USDA, it just closed in a year, that company. So I started, wanting to do something about that. But in the process, I really like to make things very personal and very familiar. So I like to start creating these characters that are a family that is, contained in the poultry business. But the film is not about that. It's about that, but it's also about family dynamics. And I also find that using the poultry business, it was and that story was very powerful to picture what I feel the movie is about. It's about patriarchy and how imperialism and colonialism functions, and in the earth, in the earth we live, and also in the animals we consume, how we enslave them in a sense, because we enslave them to eat, and then how we enslave the woman and the man too, in a way, is a kind of a slavery. And also how then you, as colonial people, we are, subjected to other powerful, system that in a sense, control life. So I feel like it was the perfect context to explore all these of these power dynamics that are, building in family.
And that kind of relates to the next question about how the universe functions. The film, like you said, is about the story and the secrets in the Diaz family. But there's also a science fiction story, what one writer calls scientific realism story. Can you talk about that part of the film?
Yes, I was thinking before, because I read the question you give me. Why? That's a very beautiful question, because the film is like, in a way, it's a classic film about a family dramedy, but also I have this aesthetic. I treat it like a Western sci-fi movie. That's the way I plan, like I director the aesthetic of the film. And because I wanted to make a metaphor about how small we are in the universe and how we are connected to everything. Either way, we don't see it or we are not conscious of it, but we are just, a speckle. And I wanted to give the film that dimension, like how you see your problems. You give your life for these problems. You decide you will not talk to your son or your daughter because they are gay or they are trans or they are no non-binary or they are independentistas or they are Christians, whatever. You feel they don't fit in, but then if you look at it in the bigger picture, we are so small that our the intimate relationships maybe the things that really matter, and that's why I use space, and also because I love the universe and I love believing that we are the stardust in a sense.
Yeah, that reminds me of that first opening scene when you're coming in, I guess, from the Andromeda galaxy, and it's moving through the cosmos, and then it moves to the Earth, and then it gets to the land. And that was a very interesting use of the whole concept of the cosmic events.
Yes.
I want to add something. I'm very obsessed with perspectives. The idea of that every person has a different perspective, and I really like to imagine myself in another people's eyes, but also even another, from Jupiter or maybe from Andromeda. How do we from Andromeda do we exist? Do we are, and that idea of changing perspective is something I think I really wanted to work in the film. I think I really wanted to work generally in my work. But
Carla, I have a question related to your first answer about how the movie was received in Puerto Rico. After you talk about those issues of colonialism and the poultry industry, how people received the film.
well, it's difficult to know because the film was released 1 week before the first hurricane, and then came the second hurricane. So it was being received very well in a sense, like the promotion and the critics and the people that were, helping to promote the film during the release were very touched by the film and were very enthusiastic with the film. So I have a sense in that in general there was a great acceptance of the film, but it's difficult to know because we were power off and there were no. But it went well in the cinemas. The time it was and the time in a small in presentation that has been the reception usually is very good. I think I tried to. Touch the theme. I don't know if that's correct, but to treat the theme of colonialism and in a in a in a way that you can just relate to it, not not pointing what direction to go, just to think about these things that maybe you don't put your attention in.
Yeah, one of the scenes between Arcadio Diaz when he's speaking to the attorney from the Puerto Rico Department of Justice, and he kind of is defending the Puerto Rican poultry business against the attempt by the large poultry American business to come in by changing the regulation. And because of that, the attorney asked him in an accusatory tone, "Are you an independentista?" And Arcadio says, "No, I think he says, I'm a businessman." Could you touch on that a bit?
What do you want to know? I think the line is very well. I don't know. I wanted to problematize. I think the idea of the independence in the independency in Puerto Rico is look like something bad, like being a republic is something bad, and I think it's more complex than that. And I wanted to reflect on the idea that if you want to be an entrepreneur in Puerto Rico, the moment you become big, you will find a wall, an invisible wall. If you are not political about it, you will not transcend that wall. This is just if you are competing with someone else in the empire, you will not succeed. They will take you out. So I wanted to just comment on that. Like, okay, you may be indifferent about it, but there's a point in which it will interfere in what liberty do we have, in what way we can pursue the dreams we want, like making film or selling chicken. That is not a business that I really love, but in a way is if you find a competition, you just will be taken from the will be taken down. And I want to comment on that, just like a question to Arcadio, but it's like a question I think for the audience too. It's like, okay, but
Yeah, it's like if you assert anything Puerto Rican, then you must be, political. It must be something political, and it must have something to do with independence. I think that happens quite a bit in Puerto Rico. People are judged. Arcadio didn't seem like he was particularly political. He was just a businessman who was trying to defend his business.
Yeah, and also that there's a persecution, and it's a reality. And whenever you are defending something that is yours, you're just looked down in that way.
I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the characters. One of my favorite characters is Andres, who's the little boy in the film. I think he's a wonderful character. He's clearly very gifted, and he's probably on the spectrum. Can you talk to us about who Andres is and how he fits into the various storylines? And I have a question. Did Andres convert himself into light and travel to the Andromeda galaxy, as the film suggests he did?
Well, the film suggests he did. So I don't know. I really don't know. Maybe he did. Maybe he don't. He didn't. I like to believe you can do it. I don't know how. So I let it just. I think that Andres is my fantasy. Is my way of is also maybe inspire a little bit on my brother too. Um, I don't know. I think Andres is a very important character for me, and it's like helped me to contrast the adult vision of the world that maybe it can be kind of square sometimes, also from his aunt, that is his the only one in the family that truly sees him and truly and is can be empathic with him, because he is like kind of alone in this family that doesn't see him. They're very busy with their happiness or unhappiness. So
he's almost invisible sometimes.
yeah, it's almost invisible. So I wanted also to talk about that, when you don't fit, when parents are just too occupied that they don't see you as a child, and how you wander in your own world, and and try to figure out things. And when I write the character, when we write the character, we study the Asperger spectrum. I didn't want to put it in the film because I wanted to have a little freedom in directing him and the things he was doing. But it was, it was created based on that things. And also because I thought the family hasn't figured out he has a problem. So they know he's weird, but they are not trying to, they don't know what to do with that. They don't know it's something maybe he needs help. And also I wanted to talk about, the idea that pure or that innocence look that sometimes give us more, it makes more sense that maybe our adult view that is just too square with with reality, with adulthood that is very intense.
We have a question on the chat. Ernesto, why don't you ask it?
Yeah, Carla, somebody wrote, why the title of Extraterrestres? What was the reason for choosing this title?
Well, I think it was a working title that I put in the movie because I thought how I can name all these stories that are happening here, and also have a way of pointing to the larger scale I wanted to talk about. And in the premise of the film is that that normality doesn't exist. That in reality we are all unique human beings. That in a way we are all kind of weird. That normality is something that we are just pushed to it, and that is sobreestimada, sobrevalorada. How you say that?
Overvalued.
Overvalue. Normality is overvalue. It's a way of control. So for me, in reality, people just play the role of being normal, but we are just all weird inside. So the title helped me to build that idea of that we are all extraterrestrials, in a sense that we are all different, we are all special, we are all from literally from another planet, because in a sense we are all stardust, and we are made from the things that the universe and the stars are made. So, and I just decide to separate the world, because in that way I could have the idea of not the extraterrestrial like the alien, but the idea of being so terrestrial, in a sense too. We are so much from Earth. We are so terrestrial. We are so human that we are not perfect. So I wanted to play with the idea of being weird, but also being very, very terrestrial. Of being that weirdness is normality, is the real normality. And I think that was that was like a game, no, of words that helped me for me to put together all these different worlds that I play with in the film.
Another theme in the film seems to be secrets. Everybody in the Diaz family has a secret that eventually all get revealed. Can you talk about that theme in the film?
Well, that it comes from the idea of questioning normality. I think I inspire my family thing. I inspire in other families and people I know in the idea of pretending to be perfect, pretending to play by the rules, and then you have this secrets, and I wanted to play with the idea that man has secrets that are public, but women really do have secrets because they cannot be revealed because they will be ostracized or criticized or judged. Men can go away with their secrets. Is kind of the society permits being unfaithful or being some this kind of things, but women are more. So I wanted to play also with the idea of how the father thinks that everything is perfect, but they are all playing, like a theater for him. And also it kind of funny. I really like the idea of, like Teresa arriving, like pushing a domino piece that, will just trigger around everything that is just contained. dramatically helps me a lot to write, to construct the arc, the dramatic arc of the story and the character.
Christian, there are a few more questions on the chat. Somebody wrote, Carla, you mentioned that the character of Andres reminds you a little bit of your brother. Do you identify with any of the characters in the film?
I have to say that I identify with many characters in the film. I identify with the father, with Teresa, and with the little boy. I think with the what I call the protagonist triangle. For me, when I write triangles because it's a way of contrasting drama and helping the third point helps view another solution. So I think I see myself in the father, in Teresa, and in Andres.
It's an interesting question. This story is very multi-dimensional. Don't you think the title would limit viewership? And I just want to put a little parenthesis. When we promoted the film, the program, we made sure we said, this is not about science fiction or about aliens, because a lot of people made that assumption from the title. So that's a good question, I think.
Well, yeah, it was difficult to promote it because it has a lot of things, but also that helped because you can focus on different. That's why we use the how you say, the log line. In this, the log line is from what planet do you are, or everybody is an extraterrestrial. We are all extraterrestrial. That was another log line we use, and my log line for selling the film was this is a movie about family chicken and stars, in which we are all extraterrestrials, and it helped. We have to, construct a little bit around the promotion, but I have to say that the promotion was going very well, and people in Puerto Rico was very into the film. But because it was, constructed, in different ways, so we let people know that it was not how you say, a sci-fi film. It's more like a scientific realism. But yeah, it was a how you say, a reto,
A challenge.
a challenge. But I think we did well. The problem was the hurricanes.
There is somebody that wrote, I love the young kid because he seemed to me the one most in touch with life. That's a comment that somebody made. And there is a question that follows. They said, did your story start as a book that it made into a movie script, or was it always meant to be on the screen? So was that an original book, or was your own creation? Can you share your answer to that?
No, I write it as a scream. It was always thought about a scream, but I had to admit that after being 8 years finding the money for doing the film, and at one point I should have been write a book first, because then it exists. But yeah, it was entirely thought about that film, and I write it as a film story.
Okay, thank you.
Somebody asked, I found it interesting that Teresa's younger sister doesn't have a job. Was there a particular reason for her being so dependent on her father?
Well, I think that happens a lot. I think that also in the way I write the character, I think it's also, I feel like the family promotes, like, in a sense, a certain codependency. And so she's not allowed to be herself totally, so she's dependable. She's codependent in that sense, and also is I don't know. It's something that I don't know. I have seen and happens. The idea of you're not taking responsibility of you is something that I wanted to write about it, because it happens, and also because when you are not free to choose your path, you have to when you don't let your children, your person you love to be free to choose their path, you just make them codependent. Yes,
And the
kind
fact
of
that
build
she
it
had,
in the family dynamic in a sense.
and the fact that she had this child, apparently not from a marriage, made her dependent. She must have been very young when she had Andres, because he's
Yeah,
about 8 and she's younger than Teresa. So
yeah.
that
I write that she was at 16, so she didn't have the time to mature in a sense, and the father is very very judgmental. So it's also reminding her always of her how you say her errores,
Mistakes.
mistakes in life, yeah.
yeah, mistakes. So it doesn't. She just like kind of evades, but to not confront that she feels guilt and she feels important about taking her life and doing what she wants. And I don't know, I think that happens a lot. And also I think that's the reason why Teresa went away, because only going away she can be free and she can choose her path. So that's why also the father is so mad at her, because the if you see, the brother is also very codependent on the father, and in the family. He works for him, but he's not. He's also very
Yeah.
dependent. So in a sense, that's why also Teresa has to go to pursue her identity, because her identity in that kind of family will not be permitted. She's a lesbian. So she has to go. But is that what permits her to achieve her maturity and achieve her dreams? The rest of the family just stay there managing and don't, are codependent.
Yeah, this kind of translates or transitions into this other question we have, which is that the film deals with a lot of issues in society like homophobia, sexism, machismo, racism. Could you speak to how the film dealt with these? You've done it a little bit with all these isms that exist in Puerto Rican and in Latino society in general.
What? I'm sorry. I read that question again and didn't. What do
Well,
you?
for example, the homophobia is obvious. The father and most people would, like you explained, that Teresa had to leave to become who she is. There's also, the sexism, how the father treats the mother, uh, and the machismo. The father takes care of this younger sister, but then his next step is to marry her off to somebody who could take care of her. He actually tells her that, right?
Yeah.
So it's a coincidence, Carla, it's a coincidence that you touch on those topics because you talk about corporate and colonialism as a major topic that you discuss in the film. But then you talk about the homophobia of the father, correct?
Yeah.
You talk about the mother, the sexism that the mother has to even hide and do her singing in secret because the lack of trust really with her own husband. So do you cover all those topics in purpose to try to display all these problems that we have in our Latino society?
Yeah, I choose to write a film inside a family, because inside a family you see everything, because they're the people that you are connected to from when you were born until you die is your family. Well, if there's a good family, there's families that you have to run away very, 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 very distant. Yeah, but usually you will try to figure out that those relationship, and that in family you have to you get to see all that differences, ideology, and it get in conflicts. And I think it's something I see in my family. I see in the whenever we have a fiesta, we there are teams that are kind of tense, and and there's tension and there's conflict, and it's also funny in a sense when you get a little bit detached, because everybody loves each other, but they are just struggling to convince one another they have the right way to live. So I wanted to, for me, I wanted to touch on these themes, yeah, because think I'm very political, and because I also think they are all connected. Like we tend to see things disconnected. Like we talk about this, but things are connected. You know, when I wake up in the morning, it affects me the war in Iran. It affects me the Wall Street market. It affects me the climate change and where the food is coming and what I see in TV, and it affects my relationships with what people believe. So I wanted to, to connect things that usually you see disconnected, because we are disconnected. And I wanted to make a film that help us see that we are connected to bigger things, and also uh, through our relationships. But what disconnect us is the differences we don't know how to manage. Diversity is what.
And I only wanted to add that it's interesting as an immigrant myself. You know, I come from Colombia, and in Colombia, you see the same kind of cultural patterns that you express in your movie of the older generation that do not want the change, that do not want to accept that kids have the right to love someone of the same sex. But then when you come to the United States, it's a whole, talk about extraterrestres, right? It's a whole different world. The Latinos of New Jersey are very open to all of these changes of society. So I think it's interesting to see as an immigrant the disparities that continue to exist between our Latino societies in Latin America and including Puerto Rico, even though Puerto Rico is part of the US, and of course, Colombia in particular, we still have a very religious kind of society where you still have a lot of prejudice and biases towards the changes that we see in the Western world.
Carla, there's a question here on the chat. The central plot of the film is Teresa's return to Puerto Rico to come out to her family and invite them to her wedding with Daniela. It is great to have the theme of queerness be central to this film. I don't remember many Puerto Rican films that deal with that theme. Was Extraterrestres considered groundbreaking on the island because of this?
Well, I don't know if it was considered in a sense like people will say, "Whoa, it's groundbreaking," but it was in a sense that it's the first film in which it is the queer relationship, a queer relationship and a lesbian relationship, two women protagonists, in which we are, the theme is central to the movie, but and also look in a positive way, in a sense that is dealing with all the rejection, but in a trying to come together. So yes, it is the first film. It is. There have been a lot of writing of the film in different in the academy in Milwaukee and other parts, and here was, I think it was very well received. I know about a story about many young people went to see the film with their fathers and their mothers, and I think it was beautiful because it was a way of and I think I write the film in that sense, like a love letter to my family to say that's who I am. Please don't judge me. And I think many young people use the film to take their family to, in a sense, get to see what they are, and get involved in all the stories are contained in identity, not only identity, what many identities that we are, role playing around. I remember this story that one woman put in the Facebook that she went to see the film with her mother, and there was another señora, another woman in the front, that when Arcadio told Teresa to go away, she started, clapping in the theater. That correct, that you had to do, and she just, pull herself up in the auditorium and start, like a discussion during the film, and the woman went away. It was, it was in a sense, I think it was, you don't know that, but I think it it helped in a sense to break some taboos. Well, we have to continue to put ourselves, because I think representation is very important. You know, you have to see yourself in stories, because if not, we don't exist as Latinos, as a Puerto Rican, as women, as men, as people of color, of African American, as gay and lesbian, and as trans. If we are not there, we don't, in a sense, we don't exist in the world, because we need to see ourselves represented to construct our identity, and when we don't have where to see, it's confusing.
Mhm.
I'm going to do a quick commercial here for the Friends of HRIC. Of course, this program was offered at no cost, but we do programs. Ordinarily, we do a large fundraiser every year, which because of the pandemic, we haven't been able to do. So I just want to ask everybody who's on the Zoom or on Facebook to consider making a contribution. The amount doesn't matter, whatever you're comfortable with. On the chat, there is a link where you could go and make a contribution. You could do it after the program. Thank you. And let's go on with Carla. I imagine that it's not easy making films in Puerto Rico, and once made, to find ways to distribute them successfully. Can you tell us about your process in creating this film, from conception to the premiere? And related to that, there was a question on the chat: how long did it take to make the film?
Well, I have these ideas, like kind of crazy ideas in my mind from 2003 to 2008, when I just figure out a synopsis. And when I had this synopsis, I went to a workshop that it was a workshop on writing a feature film. It was like the one I say, a table of writers. And my story was chosen to be the one that we were writing. And we worked a year, just, I have my characters thought about, I have, a lot of things, but we together like construct, like the film. And after that, I just I write the script and I send it to different labs and went to Madrid and rewrite the film, and then continue to investigate and rewrite the film. And it took from 2009 to 2016 to find the money to make the film. So it was, usually takes 5 years. It took eight. I think also because Puerto Rico is more difficult. And we did it in co-production with Venezuela. So we had a funding from Ibermedia, that is international fund that connects stories to be constructed between Latin American countries and Hispanic countries that are part of the program, including Spain, Portugal, and now Italy too, but also different parts of Latin America. And Puerto Rico is part of and it's cool because we can access more money that we can if we are not part of that, because in Puerto Rico there's not that much funding for film. So, and it's very, very difficult because there's not a vision also, like there's not a vision of helping culture. So it's a very long and lonely way, but we made it.
Somebody on the chat asked, Teresa was gone for 7 years. That's a very long time. I understood why the father was aloof with her. How come the rest of the family seemed to accept her return so readily?
I don't know. I think they were not having grudge. Maybe they talked to her during those years. I think the one that is very, very bitter and very, how you say, is prideful is the father. So they talk. I imagine Teresa and Andrea talk constantly, and the mother, and she did talk too. So, but I think also it's a family that is disconnected in a sense. They're disconnected from the boy. So They kind of, I don't know, sometimes relationships are kind of detached. Um, but also in that detachment, there's like a happiness to see someone again. And also, everybody is kind of lying. And so there's a game they're playing also.
Yeah, clearly she knew that Andres was into astrophysics, physics as she was, because she brought him a telescope. That was her gift to him, so
Yeah,
she
yeah.
knew what he was about.
Yeah, they write. They send things to her to her. You see, they was connected. The one with whom she's disconnected, truly is his father, because he is prideful and he's just mad at her. And you know those things happen.
Can you tell us about the cast members? How were they cast? Where are they from? What other projects have they been involved in?
Well, we have a cast director, Soraya Sanjurjo, and she helped us building the cast. Do you hear me? That there's some
We can
motorcycles.
hear you. Yeah, we can also hear the background, but that's
Yeah,
okay.
there's some motorcycles. Well, I did have help with I have a cast director, and she helped me build the family. Andres, the boy, Mauricio, he made another film after my film, and two more films after my film, very good ones. I don't remember the names right now. Prótesis is one that is Puerto Rican, and the other one is. Let me close the door.
Puerto Rico, you live in the outdoors, so you do hear the outdoors.
Yeah, I live in an avenue that is very. Sometimes at the time the motorcycles, just go. So what am I? Yeah, so Andres made different films. Marise is now in Los Angeles, and she made a series in Spain that is very important. Creo que se llama El Corredor de la Muerte, and you can find it on the internet. And also, she has made a lot of films in Puerto Rico. And Sunshine Logroño is a very important actor, comedy actor in Puerto Rico. Has different and producer. He has different programs in TV, and it has been in other films, but in small characters. I think this was one of the first films that he was a protagonist, and he was doing a dramatic character. Many people thinks remembers him as a comedian. So it was a character that he had. The people saw him differently, saw a different part of Sunshine. So I think that was, and he was very grateful. He was like thankful about me thinking about him. And Elba Escobar, she's a veteran of Venezuela, and she has been, her CV it has 16 pages. She has been in all the soap operas that were made with Puerto Rico and Venezuela. So many people of her generation here love her and know her. And when she was here, she was very loved by everybody. Prakriti Maduro has a lot of films too. She's Venezuelan too. Laura Aleman has a lot too, and she's in Los Angeles too. So, and Jamil, they are all, have a lot of films. I don't remember every film they have been because I'm not that good at memory. I have a selective memory.
A few people have asked this question, so they really liked your work. They want to know, what's your next project?
My next project. Well, I'm very secretive about the next project in a sense that I'm just figuring out different things and working a lot of different projects. Right now, photography. I'm doing a lot of photography and a lot of writing. But maybe I will go more deep into fantasy and sci-fi the next one. I don't know. I'm just putting ideas. I'm kind of a slow writer, so I have a lot of other things happening between I write because uh, I have to find the sense. And I like to put different themes together, so that takes time. Finding, the connection between. That's what challenged me when I write. So
Somebody suggested that you do GoFundMe
I
for
go
funding in the future.
Yeah, I did a GoFundMe for Extraterrestres. I did a GoFundMe for Extraterrestres, and I will do it when I am ready.
There is a comment that somebody wrote that one of my favorite little details in the film was that the mother would tell the family she was going to La Casa Parroquial, and they thought she was volunteering at the church, but she was actually going to the bar called La Casa Parroquial, where she should sing. That she found that incredibly interesting and funny.
Yeah, yeah, that was something I have in mind. I have to tell a story. I write this story when I was living in El Campo, in the mountains of Puerto Rico, very um, wood rain. How you say rainforest?
Mhm.
And I was looking at the stars, you know, working in the land, teaching film around the community. And I had these friends, these lesbian friends. I'm lesbian that, how you say, they cantaban. They have a group, a
Mhm.
music group, and they used to go to places to go to perform. And I remember one night they were performing in this bar in the principal street to go in my house. And I went. It was we went. A lot of women went. But when we arrived there, it was like a bohemia of people from 60s to up, and there was a mic, and you had to put your name and wait your time to have access to the mic. And there was poetry and music, and it was very fun. It was very, for me, it was very beautiful because I saw all these people that used. I was very young in that moment. I did think, they are old people, but they were so young. They were so full of life. They were so sensual, so happy, so creative, so vibrant. I remember for me was very magical that night. And my friends just went away because they were get tired of waiting. The waiting list was long, and it was not all the performers were good, so they just get bored and went away, and I stayed there alone, looking at that all the people and the happiness. And I remember that night I imagined the character of Genoveva. I imagined this woman, uh, you know uh, uh, a wife that has this secret life where I wanted to make people believe she's unfaithful. But I wanted to talk about what is really happiness. It is being with another person, or it's just finding yourself, loving yourself, expressing yourself. So I don't know. It was a magical night that inspired me, that character.
Beautiful.
We have a kind of a long comment. I'll try to summarize it, and it doesn't include the question. The person says the movie was a masterful blend of various themes in a very seamless and impressive manner. I do not know whether the political theme was supposed to be the main one, but what really stuck with me most was the familial themes. At the end, I couldn't help but think that Senor Diaz was genetically to blame or responsible for most of the behavior of his children. As the saying goes, a tal palo, tal astilla. Senor Diaz is clearly a stubborn and strong-willed person, and so was Teresa, who would argue back and wanted her own life. Also, Andrea, even though she is dependent on the father, definitely has her own idea of what she wants in her man. As for the son, he turned out to be a skirt chaser like the father seems to have been in his younger days. They clearly inherited a heavy dose of his genes. This person really looked at the film, analyzed it. So their question is, racism is a major issue in Spanish societies, including Puerto Rico, Colombia, etc. It was, however, a theme that was barely touched. If you had to rethink this very interesting movie, would you, and I think the rest of it was, would you have dealt with that theme more,
Well,
the racism?
I have to say that is a very important question. It had been made before, and it made me think. It wasn't it was a theme I wanted to portray in the film in two characters. I did imagine the grandmother as a African Puerto Rican, and Sunshine Logroño is African descendant, but I don't know, maybe all those years in TV not taking sun has making skin kind of gray in a sense. And then the character of Coco, I did wanted an actor, a Puerto Rican actor, Ismael Cordova, and he's African Puerto Rican, and I did wanted that he was not he wasn't not available to do the film, so we had to cast. He was in, and then when finally we get the money, he couldn't make it to the cast. So our cast director presented me different actors, actresses, and it didn't. I really have to say it didn't have a lot of diversity in race when what I was presented. So it's something that in the velocity that comes with producing low budget without money, like we had 3 weeks of pre-production. So what I did was very anxious, and I lost my voice in the process, and so I didn't have that control. When I have made my short films, I do have the control of selecting people and having a lot of diversity. But I did lose a lot of control in that sense, and it's something I have been questioned. I did question myself why didn't African Puerto Rican arrive to the cast? It was because of they were not called. It was because they're so small spaces in cinema that they are not always available because they have to do other things to get food, because acting is very difficult. In general, you demand that people calls you, and in an industry that it does so a small amount of films, it gets more hard to all actors, including African descendants. So yeah, it's something that I regret in a sense. I will have loved to have all those two, and it's weird because I did have the actors in mind. Like I did wanted Victoria Espinosa to be the grandmother, but these ideas that you have in your mind, you write it down, and life continues. And when there's the velocity of it, you just see what is presented and choose. So I, it's not put it in my head to not, to try to talk about it, because I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to talk about it, the racism that is inherited when you pretend you are not Black. In that sense, using that Sunshine is, it's a Black man, but it's, so yeah.
Carla, the movie does have a section where the boyfriend of one, I don't remember the daughter's name, he was African descent. And I asked you this question before: was he discriminated by the father because of color or because of class?
I think both.
So you did touch a little bit on the issue of race relations.
Yeah, the problem is that for Puerto Ricans, he's not considered Black, and that's the point, that is considered Black. So that's why I wanted to choose another. I had in mind other actor, but it was nice that he did a very good job. But yeah, that was I have 2 points to touch that theme, and in the casting I just lose it because it was tangential, it wasn't directly, but like other themes in the film, it will be touched by by that idea of why he's being prejudiced because of class. But for me it was class, and it was skin color too.
Because when you come to the US, people will assume you're Black. But that's a very typical problem in Latin America, right? If you go to Latin America, no, I am not Black, I am yellow. Yeah, but you look Black. The denial of race. So it's an interesting point.
I think we have time for one more question, Carla, and it's from the chat. And it's, how can others around the world see the film? And this made me think, have you considered selling it to Netflix?
Well, yeah, I have a distributor who tried to sell it to Netflix. It's not that easy to sell to Netflix, so I didn't find a door. I imagine they didn't. Yeah.
So the question about how people around the world can see the film, is it available on DVD?
Yeah, in Amazon, you can see it in Amazon. It's in Amazon. You can rent it there. Also, you can rent it in Vimeo. In Vimeo, you can see it too. And yeah, those are. I think there's another platforms in Latin America. Pluto TV. You can see it also in Viendo Movies. They have a YouTube channel also. There's different, and also I have a distributor also that sells this to universities, como part of a programs in university in the United States, and there's some writings about the film also in Academy. So I think there's.
Carla, I think we've come to the end.
Carla, we want to thank you. We want to thank you so much for participating in this great conversation. I wish we were like in a bar, in that bar that you mentioned in Puerto Rico, and having a beer and some coffee and talking like we did tonight. It was such a pleasure to have you, and you are so honest. You see the positive aspects, what can you improve as a filmmaker, and that make you even bigger as a human being when you can see all the sides. Grisel, you did a great job, and thank you everybody for participating in this event. Do not forget that this was sponsored by Friends of the Hispanic Research and Information Center, and the objective is that you support the Latino community, support the history of Latinos, support Latino filmmakers like Carla, and spread the word about all the work that the Newark Public Library is doing in relation to maintaining the history and the legacy of Hispanics in the United States. And we're trying to do also the programs now in February 24. We have a program that is going to connect us to people all over Latin America. We have Afro people from different professions that are going to express issues of race and the whitening ideal that we were discussing with Carla a little bit. And we're going to discuss it more in a forum on February 24. So Ms. Betancourt is going to send for sure some email to remind everybody about this program that is also sponsored by the Friends of the HRIC in conjunction with the Newark Public Library. Ingrid, I don't know, you want to say a few words before we go.
Thank you, Ernesto. I want to ask everyone, if you're interested in the programs that the Friends of HRIC are doing and other programs that the New Jersey Hispanic Research and Information Center at the Newark Library are presenting, just go visit our webpage, and it's the Newark Public Library's webpage. It's very simple. It's www.n as in Newark, P as in public, L as in library, NPL.org. And you will see right at the top programs that are coming up, and you can register if you wish. Give us your email address, and then we will receive information and posts about upcoming programs. I also want to thank everybody here. I want to thank the Friends of HRIC, Ernesto, Grisel, and all of the friends behind the scenes who have worked so hard for about 20 years now to make a reality, make it a reality, the dream of having, the Puerto Rican Archive and the NJHRIC at the Newark Library. Thank you for your work, for your support, and for all the work that you continue doing. And of course, I want to thank Carla for this fantastic program. Carla, muchísimas gracias. Un programa fantástico. Te agradecemos mucho tu presencia y tu labor creando esta película fantástica. Muchas gracias por participar en este programa esta noche. Thank you for joining us this evening and for participating in this program. Thank you.
Thank you all for your persistence and for doing this. It's very, I appreciate it. It's very important for me. So thank you.
Thank you.
Noches.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Night.